You can't have a proper Star Wars review without one of these. Yeah. Pretty cool. Actually, thinking about it, you can have a review without one of these. Yeah. Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, or as most fans tend to call it, just Star Wars, came out in 1977 and is one of the most famous films ever made. I mean, you can't find a film that is as this popular and as this famous as Star Wars. Star Wars was the film that knocked Jaws off at the top spot at the box office and kick-started a lot of famous people's careers, like Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher even. It's Star Wars. You can't really go wrong with Star Wars. Now, most people on YouTube have reviewed the 1977 original version without all of the digital mock-ups that George Lucas put in later. But unfortunately, because I've grown up, in recent years, the only versions I've seen have been the tampered ones that have all the digital extras on them. So I've probably only seen the original film maybe once. But to be honest, I'm gonna go as true as I can to the original, and to be honest, from watching the altered versions, the digitally enhanced versions, you can kind of tell what was in the original and what wasn't. So I'll try my best to keep to the original as much as I can. However, I will make note along the way of some of the problems that came from the digital enhancements. Now, the first thing I want to bring up in this review about Star Wars is that it holds up tremendously. I mean, it is flawless. It's like watching 2001: A Space Odyssey. There is literally, you can hardly tell what is models and what isn't. Everything just still looks flawless. Nothing looks fake whatsoever, even though you can tell that the film itself is old and dated, but nothing special effects wise shows that. It's really hard to explain, because you know just by general knowledge and by the look of some of the things that it is an old film, but the special effects and the ways that they shoot specific scenes just make it hold up a whole lot more, especially seeing that it was a film that came out in the 70s. You got to remember that at least. So yeah, the effects hold up tremendously, which is hard to say about the prequels, but it just still looks really good. I mean, from the opening shot of that massive Star Destroyer just taking up the entire screen, and he's just chasing down this little rebel cruiser, it's just one of the best shots in film history. It's one of the most perfect, if I could say so. You just get this massive sense of scale just from the opening shot alone. Not just from how big the Star Destroyers are, but how big the world that George Lucas has created is in general. Also, the fact that we're entering this massive world is also backed up by the fact that some of the stories that are told through Obi-Wan Kenobi. He mentions this stuff about the Clone Wars, and you're immediately intrigued onto what this is, and you know that what you're seeing here is just very small and insignificant compared to the entire universe that is out there and that could be explored in the future. The sets in this film are so good. There is so much detail put into every shot that you can hardly take it in one viewing. You kind of have to go back, notice little bits here and there, and it's just really good, which is unfortunately one of the things that the digital enhancements just ruined, because the opening shot that you get of Mos Eisley's spaceport is perfect, because you get all these little houses, you get all these little details, and they're only models. But in the digital enhancements, George Lucas decides to dump a ton of CGI monsters and spaceships just all in front of it, and make it really confusing and hurting for the eyes, to be honest. Now, one thing in this film that a lot of people have taken for granted now is the fact that the film doesn't actually start with any of the main characters. Instead, we're just introduced to C-3PO and R2-D2, and to be honest, by the start of the film, we don't know who they are, but from all the visuals around them, we're just intrigued and we just want to delve in deeper, which is why I'm surprised the film can encapsulate you and make you want to know more, even though we don't meet the main characters till about 20 minutes into the film. Talking about characters, the characters in this film are some of the best put to screen. Now, I'm not just saying that because they're memorable, they are really some of the best put to screen. I mean, you got Luke Skywalker, who starts off as a bit of an annoying brat, a little bit like Anakin, but over the course of the film, he progresses and matures and understands his purpose in life, which is a really good character arc that they decided to do. You've got Han Solo, who's probably one of the coolest characters ever put to screen, if not the coolest. Also, I just want to clear one thing up. Of course Han shot first in the cantina. The rest of that whole Greedo thing's bullshit. Honestly. Oh, Lucas. Oh dear. Alec Guinness is also very, very memorable as Obi-Wan Kenobi. But this wouldn't be a proper Star Wars review without talking about Darth Vader. Now, he's been mimicked, he's been parodied millions of times, but you can still never take away that same feeling as you get the first time you see Darth Vader. You know from the very first scene that he's in that he's methodical, he knows what he's doing, and he can just, he can turn on anyone just like that. Also, one thing that most people associate with the Star Wars series is the music, and the music for this film and most of the original trilogy is some of the best music ever recorded. It's one of the best scores ever done to a film ever. Just John Williams knew what he was doing. And I have to admit, for a film that is very similar to Jaws in the fact that no one knew if it was going to work or not, even George Lucas himself had to, reassure the cast and the crew that it was going to work. And the fact that no one really knew what to expect, but then John Luke Williams comes in and brings in this extra bit of layering with his score that just makes every scene more meaningful. I mean, that one shot where Luke is looking at the two moons and you get his brilliant and chilling score just brings chills down my spine every time I hear it. And the best thing is, John Williams' score doesn't just get associated with the film itself. You can have it in your head for days after watching the film. Now, like I said, George Lucas did tend to ruin the films after the DVD releases, where he decided to add scenes that weren't in the original, or add little differences with the CGI enhancements that, like I said before, don't always work. Now, I've mentioned the Han and Greedo thing, where Greedo shot first, which is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. But yeah, that's one of the worst things they could have put into this film. However, not all the changes are for bad. There is a deleted scene that is added into the original Star Wars film that does work. And if you don't know what I'm on about, basically there's a scene where Luke and a co-pilot called Biggs are basically connecting, they're talking, they haven't met for a while, and they basically, they're rekindling their friendship. So that makes his death, that comes later during the trench run scene, spoiler alert, it makes his death basically more meaningful and more impactful for the audience. You actually get a sense of friendship between them with that scene. Whereas in the original, that scene wasn't there, and it just felt kind of weird that he cared about this one guy called Biggs who just randomly died. Star Wars is an all-time classic. It raised the bar and still does to this day for sci-fi films and films in general. Most people tend to just take the story of Star Wars now and work upon it. Whereas Star Wars was groundbreaking at the time, it still looks good to this day, even if the digital changes aren't for the best most of the time. Star Wars has inspired a ton of filmmakers around the world, including myself, and it's just one of the best films of all time. One of the best sci-fi and just standalone films ever. Of course I'm going to give it a 10. I mean, what other score could you give it? Thanks for watching my review on Star Wars, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, leave a like down below, also comment if you want to. And yeah, check out my Media Critic Facebook page as well. And that's all I can say, guys.